have Mr. Bannon on the phone. So let's start today's show. So my first question, Steve, for you is considering the recent momentum in the U.S.-Indian trade talks and reports on about the Air India is going to step up and taking the Boeing jets that rejected by the CCP. Then suddenly on just 2 days ago, on 23rd, a deadly attack occurred in Kashmir. And we know it's a long disputed land claimed by India and Pakistan. So my question to you is, could this incident be part of the broader strategy that Miles Guo has warned us back in 2022, which is that the CCP will use Pakistan as a proxy to exert pressure on India and to counter its growing alliance with the West?
This is 100%. I think that, to me, there's no doubt. I mean, Miles called this one, and you can't take, we're very close. If you look at the trade deals they're talking about, and when Besant, the Secretary of Treasury Besant, talks about the most important ones, he's talking about Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, the Philippines, Vietnam, and India. We're most farthest along with India, which is, also I think it's today, also Apple announced they're shifting $45 billion worth of iPhone manufacturing to India. And so the CCP, which has been at war with India back in the 60s and had border disputes and military action even up to a couple of years ago, I think you see the black hand of the CCP in back of this Kashmir situation. And I think it's adding now, which has always been one of the most dangerous parts of the world, is that that territory. The disputed territory between India and Pakistan is a new hot zone with the Chinese Communist Party in back of this. The CCP is not going to allow Washington and President Trump to reorganize world trade in these alliances. Remember, the front page of the Financial Times of London on Tuesday said Beijing has said they will retaliate against those countries that sign up for the American order. Because remember, one of the central parts of this, Ava, is that you're going to the center of gravity of your trade is going to be in partnership with the United States, and that's why Besant. It's not the EU that's so important. It's really the East Asia and India. Now, we should also state last night the EU stated categorically that decoupling from China, which is the parts of these other trade deals, they will not agree to that. And that's why I said on War Room today, then, hey, guess what? The two carrier battle groups in the Red Sea that are keeping the Suez Canal open should be removed, and they should have to defend it themselves. They're not prepared to go along because the central part of Trump's thesis is a decoupling. Yes. And I don't care what he made news today with the Time Magazine article came out. President Trump said they're in discussions. The Chinese Communist Party came out immediately, which is always part of the negotiating tactics, said we're not in discussions with anybody. So for the audience, we're in this now. We've engaged ourselves now in the economic war that the Chinese Communist Party has been running against the West in other countries in East Asia for the last 10 or 15 years.
Steve, you mentioned about Europe. This is straight our intel. So Miles Guo actually, recent calls shared with us that the CCP is doing something behind Europe. Okay, they're betting on basically intensify the chasm between the United States and the Europe. So what you just described, it's definitely is CCP's hidden hands working on this. But my question to you is more and more clear that the CCP is doing a hybrid unrestricted warfare. So this is far beyond just trade dispute and tariff war. We've seen, what happened in Kashmir, India, and in Pakistan. We've seen the manipulation of capital markets, currency warfare, cyber attack, information warfare, and constant low-intensity conflict in South China Sea at this moment as we speak. So the hybrid unrestricted warfare is full motion. And yesterday at the Hillsdale College, you delivered a very powerful speech to the audience and talking about 1960, which warned by the president of the college, Larry Erm. But that's exactly what the CCP is betting on. They're deliberately fueling regional conflicts to divide and destabilize the U.S. and its ally. or whether it's here or whether it's far away in South Asia, hoping for a civil war. and so that they can, escalating the tensions in all the regional places around the world. So in light of this, how should America and its partner respond to this evolving threat, but without falling right into the CCP's evil plan?
Well, I think it's, first off, you have to understand that it is a plan. It has to be counteracted. I think this is one of the powers of President Trump. Remember, Biden, Obama, even though Obama talked about a pivot to Asia, it's all been happy talk. We have not faced the basic fact that the Chinese Communist Party is at and you said it best, a hybrid war, unrestricted warfare, much more intensified, engaged in a war against the United States and the entire West. It's sweeping up the world in it. I talked at the World Economic Conference in Washington, D.C., which is the new Davos in D.C. I was the only populist nationalist individual invited, and I started off the talk by saying, hey, because I said, you're talking about tariffs and trade and all this. This is economic warfare. We're now engaged in economic war with the Chinese Communist Party. These are two incompatible systems. And I walked through from the World Trade Organization, from the 90s, World Trade Organization, most favored nation, they gamed that system. They signed a cyber deal with Obama in 2015, didn't live up to any of the requirements. The Hong Kong deal, starting in 2018, 2019, they completely changed and took over Hong Kong most brutally. The deal that Lighthizer had negotiated with them for 2 years under President Trump with Vice Premier Lee Hood, they walked away from. After we spent 2 years and had the entire coupling worked out, they walked away from it. The skinny deal that they didn't agree to, they haven't fulfilled any commitments on the skinny deal. And in the middle of that, they lit off the Wuhan lab in the pandemic to the World Games after they walked away from the deal in May of 2019 and declared a people's war. So it's obvious they're at war with us. I think we just have to be very sophisticated. What I'm trying to warn the American people about regarding 1860, we're going to go through a series of crises, and we have to be hardened and tough about that to win those crises. Whoever wins that will win control of the United States of America, the political party, the political group. We fully intend to do that, and we intend to support the Lao Beijing as the Chinese Communist Party overreaches in desperation and is overthrown and or collapses by its own regard.
Yes, Steve, as we talk about this decoupling movement getting deeper and deeper, yesterday we were talking about like how Miles thinks our show is so impactful inside the Chinese Communist Party. So what would you say to those people who are supporters, of course, but also the people who are sitting on the fence? They're still like undecisive about like whether they should support the U.S. and Nfsc or should like turn on against Xi.
Well, it's very simple. If other nations, and look, here's what we know directly from other nations. One, they're not questioning that the reciprocity, they do game the American system to take advantage, and no leaders has ever stepped up in the United States until Trump. But more importantly, the easiest parts of the conversation is not being in the CCP's orbit, right? When Caroline Wren was on the show, she was reporting from Thailand. She was reporting from Indonesia. She was there for ASEAN, that joint economic bloc of Southeast Asia, of all those nations. Remember, she went down there. She's sent delegations, and they had 250 people there who said, you will not sign deals with the United States. And every one of them were saying behind the scenes that, Caroline, we have to sign a deal with the United States. The Chinese Communists, the black hand of the Chinese Communist Party is not a hand of a partner. It's a hand of control. All they want to do is control these nations. And the leaders of the nations and these people understand that. In fact, many of the overseas Chinese that live in those nations don't. Some do. Some are obviously CCP operatives, but many don't. In fact, they've left to make sure that they didn't have to live under the brutal dictatorship of the Chinese Communist Party. The world is coming to a fork in the road. And the fork in the road, and this is President Trump is using the trade and tariff as a forcing function, you're going to have to choose one or the other. You're going to have to choose to be partners with the Chinese Communist Party, or you're going to have to choose to be partners with the United States of America. And that's the fork in the road. Hands down, no one, including Lao Beijing, the unfortunate great civilization and culture of the Chinese people captured by an illegitimate dictatorship in Beijing, wants to be a part of this because it's so brutal, it's so inhuman. It only cares about itself, it only cares about its power, it only cares about its privileges, it only cares about getting more and more wealth basically extracted from the people they control.
So, Steve, you last week, this is Bannon, you mentioned about dictator. Last week on the show, you mentioned about there's 5 big faction families and 1 dictator. So my question to you, I think U.S. need offensive strategy. And we know CCP fear the most. Xi Jinping fear the most is the political counterattack from within. And right now, America has the once-of-lifetime opportunity to leverage that cracks. So my question to you is, what is the Trump or Trump team currently strategy is for identifying and intensify those internal divisions, borrow the sword to kill your enemy? That is a strategy that CCP has been using. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Ava, you're quite brilliant as always, and you ask amazing questions. Roy, I know it's tough for me to keep up with. I know these are brilliant questions. Ava, that's absolutely brilliant. And my only response is that's top secret.
Gotcha.
Wow.
No,
and Nfsc will help the American people.
The audience should understand there are people spending a lot of time on that, a lot of time thinking that, during a lot of time executing on that. And the factions are at each other's throats behind the scenes. This is why Xi just last week cashiered another senior general in the PLA.
Yes.
There's also a group, a part of the faction that's more even ultra-nationalist than Xi. And so there's tremendous turmoil, there's tremendous finger pointing, there's tremendous, inside the Chinese Communist Party of how did they get in this situation, because this is not something they had planned on, right? They've prepared for, but they never thought it would happen. There's a lot of finger pointing. There's a lot of second guessing on moves that have been made. There's a lot of dissension. Clearly inside the country, there's a lot of angst, unemployment, cost of living. Young people feel like they've been abandoned. The promise that, the trade-off the Chinese people have unfortunately been forced to make is to trade off some sort of economic security for giving up all their political and human freedom, which is a horrible, horrible thing and has had such a horrible impact on Chinese civilization, and particularly the family, the traditional family, and people are questioning that. So it's a time of turmoil. I do think President Trump does put first and foremost, he wants to make sure we avoid a broadening of the kinetic war that's already started in Ukraine and in the Middle East, and now is off the tip of in Yemen, the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula. So we are in, for the audience, we are in the most dangerous time for the United States of America, and quite frankly, the most dangerous time in the world. Even more dangerous than 1939 and 1940, the prelude to the great conflagration of World War II that took at least 35 to 40 million Chinese lives.
Yes, thank you, Steve. I know it's already 12:30, so we're going to let you go. Yeah.
I'm actually still in Kansas. I'm heading back to D.C. I want to thank you guys. Look forward to being on the show next week.
Thank you so much. You have a great weekend. See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So that's it for today's special with Stephen K. Bannon, the co-founder of the new federal state of China.
We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye-bye.